Welcome to the 2023 Oscar preview show as presented by the Yay, Nay or Meh channel. This is a series of videos where I will be analysing the above the line categories at the 2023 Oscars. Even though I've been podcasting and reviewing films for over a decade now, I still consider myself an enthusiastic amateur rather than an expert. I didn't go to film school, I don't really have the training in it. This is the reason why I only do the major categories, because I honestly don't think I can give a value judgment as to what the best editing is, what the best production design is. But I do believe I can give value judgments about the best acting, the best directing, the best writing, and the best film. So that is why I only do the major categories. And I analyse the Oscars in a slightly different way than most people, because I spend almost as much time discussing what I think should have been nominated rather than what was nominated, and only limiting myself to that. And as such, these videos and in past years audio podcasts do get rather long. So what I've decided to do is split these reviews up into separate videos, and there will be one video for each category, where I will be discussing what I think will win, what I think should win, whether there were any snubs, and if there were any snubs, whether I personally think they should actually have won the Oscar. And in a couple of places I've gone really left field with what I think should win the Oscar. So this is going to be a long process. I mean, at the time of recording, it's less than a week away from the actual Oscar ceremony. So I need to be efficient and I need to be fast. And as such, I'm going to be reusing a lot of the same videos. This introduction I'm recording now will be on each of these videos. I mean, I need to introduce each of the videos in case you come across them individually. So I may as well just record one introduction and use it in each of the videos. And if you watch more than one of these, you'll be seeing this a lot. And as such, there will be a time code in the comments to tell you when the actual content starts. And when I will be talking about the same film in different categories, I'll also be reusing that video as well. So you will be seeing some repeats, but again, you can check in the time codes. And with such a vast project, you need a starting point. In certain categories, there is a shortlist. In both the documentary feature and the international feature categories, the Academy publishes a 15-film long list. And in the animated feature category, they publish a list of eligible films. And this year, there were 27 eligible animated features. But other than those categories with a specific list, the starting point that I use is the lists that are published on goldderby.com, which is basically the industry standard for this kind of Oscar preview and prediction. So if a performance or a film was listed on the Gold Derby lists of Oscar potential, there was a chance, however remote, that a performance or a film did have a chance at the Oscars. And that is the list I will be using, with a couple of tweaks which will come up during some of these videos. So that is my starting point, and if it wasn't published on goldderby.com, it's not going to be under consideration. And this has already gone on for far too long, so let's get on with this categories analysis.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Nominee.
It's often the case that an international feature not in the English language makes it all the way to a nomination for Best Picture. And therefore it is blindingly obvious what is going to win Best International Feature. this has happened over recent years with the Japanese film Drive My Car, the Korean film Parasite, which of course won Best Picture as well, and also the Mexican film Roma. And this year, that honour goes to this German film All Quiet on the Western Front. So it was blindingly obvious what would win the international feature competition even before, astonishingly, this film won the BAFTA, not only for Best Film not in the English language, but also Best Film. What? Because I'm on record as saying that I am not the hugest fan of All Quiet on the Western Front. Yes, it is an emotionally powerful film, but in my opinion, Edward Berger over-directs the film. I think it's too stylised for its own good. Yes, it has the emotional power. Very good acting. I think Felix Camera, the leading actor, is excellent, and I'm going to give him an honourable mention as Best Actor. But I think what Edward Berger has done with this 2022 version of All Quiet on the Western Front is turned one of the greatest anti-war novels, and arguably also one of the greatest anti-war films, the Oscar-winning 1930 version of All Quiet on the Western Front. He's turned that project into just another war movie. Or at least that's how I felt about it. I mean, I understand why people have connected with it. I understand why people are going to praise us and it is going to win Best International Feature, but it just didn't grab me. I'm sorry, it didn't. And there are other international features which I will be talking about in both Best Picture and Best International Feature. It just doesn't do it for me. So yeah, I don't think it should have got nominated in any of the three above the line categories it got in Best International Feature, Best Feature, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Didn't make the cut of any of my personal nominees. But in each case, I mean, it's a good film. I just didn't love it the way that most people do. So, All Quiet on the Western Front in Best Picture, Best International Feature, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It's just a meh.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Nominee.
When you have a quote-unquote fun film, which also has some Oscar buzz about it, what sometimes happens is they just throw them a sympathy screenplay nomination. That's what happens to Rian Johnson with his film Knives Out, and the same thing has happened with its sequel Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Yeah, awkward title, but Netflix must do what it can to market it. But anyway, Glass Onion is the second film featuring Benoit Blanc, and it has the same love of old school murder mysteries, of Agatha Christie-esque approaches, you know, a group of extravagant people in an enclosed space. Not many people can have done it, so who done it? The typical classic whodunit structure, but done with a very modern twist. And in both Knives Out and this new one, Glass Onion, having a flashback structure in which large chunks of the film are replayed from a different perspective, and suddenly everything is different. Everything you thought you knew, you don't know. It's very, very clever. It's very intricate. The characterization, the acting of everybody is exceptional. I mean, I think Janelle Monáe deserves an honourable mention as Best Supporting Actress. I also think Kate Hudson is hysterically funny in this film. Dave Bautista once again proves that he's more than just a meathead. He can act. And of course there's Edward Norton as the head of this. I mean, the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk-esque tech bro who brings everybody together and is honestly a bit of a dick. So, yeah, I mean, Rian Johnson has points he wants to make. I mean, the skewering of elites, of disruptors who are going about in various fields. Rian Johnson has no time for these people at all. I mean, very similarly to what Jada Martell was doing in Knives Out. I mean, this 15-year-old neo-libertarian nut job. Yes, it's kind of blunt, but it does work at the same time. And yeah, I think the script to Glass Onion does deserve this nomination. Honestly, I don't think it's as clever as Knives Out. I don't think it's as good as Knives Out. The puzzle box way that Knives Out fit together was hugely impressive. And I can't quite say the same about Glass Onion, but it's got enough witty remarks and enough skewering of these kinds of ultra-wealthy elites. It does have a good mystery. Honestly, I don't think it's a great mystery. So altogether, I do think it works. And I do think that Glass Onion deserved its nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. And it is a yeah.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Nominee.
Living definitely deserves its nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. Written by the legendary novelist Katsuo Ishiguro, who did Remains of the Day. What? But anyway, I mean, adapted and being a remake of the Akira Kurosawa film Ikiru, and starring Bill Nighy in an Oscar-nominated turn. This is a beautiful, poetic film about fatalism, about regret, about life, about living. This is poetic, it's beautiful. It's really, really impressive. Unfortunately, I don't think it can stand up to its original, Ikiru, which, in my opinion, is an absolute masterpiece. Ikiru is just so beautiful. The funeral scene in Ikiru is one of the best written things I think I've ever seen. And I don't think anything in Living quite lives up to that. But just because you pale in comparison to an all-time classic, which is on the Sight and Sound Top 250 list, doesn't mean you aren't a worthy and a brilliant and a poetic film. Living is an examination of the British character, as the original Ikiru was an examination of the Japanese character. But Living has that stiff upper lip mentality, that don't make a fuss mentality, which is so expertly portrayed by Bill Nighy. It's a really, really impressive piece of work, and yes, it fully deserves its nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. And I think it should have got a Best Picture nod as well. I think this kind of subtlety and reflection doesn't always do well in a big category like Best Picture. But in my opinion, Living definitely deserved a Best Picture nomination as well. So yeah, Living is a.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Nominee.
Oh, fucking Top Gun Maverick. Why? Oh yeah, fine. It's apparently saved the cinema in 2022. You know, people only went to the cinema to see this fucking movie. Is that enough to make it a Best Picture? And a Best Adapted Screenplay? Giving Top Gun Maverick Best Adapted Screenplay when you don't give The Whale Best Adapted Screenplay? I mean, yes, The Whale was very divisive, but still, Top Gun Maverick Adapted Screenplay? Adapted not only from the original Top Gun, but the second half of the movie is the trench run from Star Wars. Why is nobody shouting about this? They just ripped off the trench run from Star Wars, shoved it in a Tom Cruise movie, and it's Oscar worthy? No! This is testosterone drenched, badass cinema bullshit. We stopped making movies like this 20, 30 years ago for a good reason. There's nothing impressive here. There's nothing original here. It doesn't really address the way that things have changed, and when it does it in dismissive terms. I mean, there's a scene towards the beginning of the film where, I can never remember if it's Ed Harris or Ed O'Neill. I think it's Ed Harris. He plays an admiral, and he says, you doing this Mach 10 fighter pilots mean manned aircraft are a thing of the past. The future is drones. Which is right. I mean, there's lots of stuff about drones, but unmanned aircraft are the way of the future. In so many ways, Tom Cruise is a dinosaur, and this movie is a dinosaur. The fact that there's a scene where Miles Teller and Glenn Powell are in a bar and preening and just butting heads and dripping in testosterone to impress a woman. I mean, yes, nowadays, because it's 2022, the woman's also a fighter pilot, but they're still doing it. They're still butting heads because they're so goddamn macho. We don't need this anymore. Okay, right. I think we do kind of need this. We need films like Top Gun Maverick, like the Fast and the Furious franchise, like Bond, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We need those kinds of films. There is a place for them. There is a time for them. We do need them. We do need the cinema to survive. But in Oscar terms, we do not need this movie. So no, this should not have got a Best Picture nomination. It definitely should not have got a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination, particularly over The Whale. And in both of those categories for me, Top Gun Maverick is a resounding nay.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Snubbed.
It's a truism of Hollywood that once one film becomes successful, films like it have a much, much easier job of getting greenlit. Over recent years, we have had a slew of films about the black experience. And I think this was largely kick-started by Get Out. But personally speaking, I think a few years earlier was the John the Baptist to Get Out's Jesus in Justin Simeon's film Dear White People, which subsequently get turned into a TV series. But with Dear White People, Get Out, Blind Spotting, Last Black Man in San Francisco, Sorry to Bother You, all of these films have been dealing with the black experience. And Amazon Prime, I don't know if this was a deliberate thing or not, but Amazon Prime had several films released in 2022 which directly dealt with this. There was the excellent horror movie Master. There was the okay horror movie Nanny, which honestly I wasn't a fan of. And there was also this film Emergency, which I think is exceptional. Now, I should say that Gold Derby had this listed as a Best Original Screenplay contender, but it should be a Best Adapted Screenplay contender because it is expanded from the short film directed by Kerry Williams and written by K.D. Davila. And K.D. Davila actually got an Oscar nomination last year for directing one of the live-action shorts, but Kerry Williams and K.D. Davila expand their short film into this feature film. And I think do something very, very clever. Because on the surface, this is structured like a One Wild Night college party. I mean, the whole point is that the characters want to do a circuit of graduation parties. They're just about to graduate from college. But they go home and they find a blonde white girl passed out on their living room floor. They have no idea who she is, no idea how she got in. I mean, somebody left the front door open, but these two black guys and one Hispanic guy have to try and get this girl to the hospital, get them to safety, and not get themselves killed. I mean, these are three non-white people with a blonde white girl, and people are automatically going to assume the worst. So they spend the entire night trying to get this blonde, passed out white girl to hospital to safety, and everything goes wrong. I mean, every time they try something, it doesn't work. I mean, it is structured like a crazy college party One Wild Night movie, but it's actually saying some really, really valuable things about the black experience, about what it is like to live in a world which doesn't necessarily want you. I mean, there's a very, very poignant moment where one of these black guys, played by RJ Seiler, who, it should be said, is high out of his mind at the time, so comedy. But he says, don't go out wearing hoodies, we're going to get shot if we wear hoodies, or words to that effect. And having to think like that is kind of eye-opening. I mean, here I am sitting here, a white, middle-class English person. I know I sit with white privilege. So exploring and trying to understand this kind of scenario, I think, is vitally important. And I think Emergency does it very, very well, because it does make these valuable points, but it sugarcoats the pill, because, yes, it is actually funny. It is actually a One Wild Night college party movie. It's also about race, and it's also about not getting killed simply for being black. There are some very uncomfortable scenes in this film. I mean, there's one scene towards the end where a white person is trying to apologise, and it's just, oh, don't even bother. And the black guys just close the door on them. And I kind of feel like that in certain places when I'm talking about films about black people. I want and I hope, I'm trying to be sensitive and I'm trying to be open, but I know I sit with white privilege, and confronting that and showing that in a film like Emergency, I think is important. So yes, I think this is a very, very clever film which manages to sugarcoat a very necessary pill. I do think it deserved a nomination as Best Adapted Screenplay. I also give an honourable mention as Best Picture. I think it's that good and that important. I think it builds upon the legacy of Get Out and Dear White People and Blind Spotting in really, really impressive ways. I really, really liked Emergency, and I do think it deserved an Oscar nomination. And Emergency is a yay.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Will win. Should win.
Women Talking is the type of film that sometimes doesn't manage to get through in award season, because it does what it says on the tin. It's about women, and it's a very, very talky movie. It's also directed by a woman. And I think Sarah Polley can feel somewhat hard done by in not getting a Best Director nomination in an all-male field. At the end of the day, Women Talking only got 2 nominations, although one of them was for Best Picture. And I think the other one, Best Adapted Screenplay, Women Talking is actually going to win, and it's going to deserve to win. Adapted from the novel by Miriam, I'm not sure if it's Toews or Taves, could be either, but having this film, which is almost exclusively a group of about 10 women, just talking with each other and discussing their problems, discussing their issues, discussing the systemic sexual abuse that they've been subjected to for decades, and maybe trying to do something about it. I mean, this is another film which is very much set in a post-Me Too world, or at least greenlit and produced and made in a post-Me Too world. And there's power there. I mean, these different women with their different approaches and their different reasons for doing the things they're doing and suggesting the things they are doing. I mean, the dialogue is so great in this. I mean, all the different perspectives. I think one of the problems why it did get more Oscar nominations is it split the vote. I mean, there was too many great female performances to vote for. I mean, Rooney Mara, Jessie Buckley, Claire Foy, Ben Whishaw as the only man in the film. I think they split the vote, and this is, I think, a great demonstration as to why the Oscars need a Best Ensemble category, but that's another discussion for another day. But the way this film progresses, the way it film presents itself, very much dealing with the psychology, very much dealing with the dialogue. But also when you do go outside, you have the sun-dappled cinematography of this rural Canadian Mennonite community. And it's beautiful. So it's beautiful, it's well acted, the script is extremely good. And I think it deserves more attention than it got. I mean, I think it's going to win Best Adapted Screenplay, and it is going to deserve winning Best Adapted Screenplay. Although not my personal choice for that particular category. But yeah, Women Talking is a very impressive film. And for both Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay, it is a definite yay.
Best Adapted Screenplay. Should win. Snubbed.
When I watched the announcement of the Oscar nominations and tried to do a reaction video to it, which didn't entirely work, but the two things which utterly shocked me was Daniel Deadwyler not getting a Best Supporting Actress nomination and The Whale not getting a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination. I just couldn't conceive of a world in which The Whale didn't get that screenplay nomination. At the time, I didn't realise just how divisive The Whale had turned out to be, with a lot of people talking about the fat shaming going on and Brendan Fraser wearing the fat suit and having the sound of constantly eating and slobbering and all that kind of stuff. And the disgust which is shown by the filmmaker Darren Aronofsky to his character. I didn't know all that was going on. When I saw The Whale, I thought it was beautiful, it was poetic, I mean, yes, grotesque, but designed to be grotesque. And the physical representation of the body of Brendan Fraser being a mirror for his grief, for his turmoil. I mean, he is slowly and deliberately killing himself. And that is what I took out of The Whale. Out of the screenplay written by Samuel D. Hunter, who wrote the original play, I found a reflection of grief, a reflection of regret, the interactions that Brendan Fraser has with his daughter Sadie Sink, with his friend and nurse Hong Chow. The melancholy of that, the grace of that, I found it immensely powerful, immensely moving. I can understand why people have taken against it. I can understand why the fat shaming aspects do upset people. I mean, as you can tell, I'm not the slimmest person, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. But I didn't take that out of The Whale, and I do think it not only deserved a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, I think it should win the category. I also think it should be a Best Picture nominee as well. And in my personal list, I'm giving it, out of the nominees, a Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress as well. So, yeah, I was very, very impressed with The Whale. I do understand and I do respect people taking so strongly against it. I didn't feel that. I think this is a film about grief. It's a film about fatalism and regret that I found immensely powerful and immensely well acted. So yeah, I think not only should The Whale have got nominations for both Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay, I also think it should have won Best Adapted Screenplay. And for me, The Whale is a yay. In the Best Adapted Screenplay category, the actual nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, written by Edward Berger, Leslie Patterson and Ian Stokell. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, written by Ryan Johnson. Living, written by Katsuo Ishiguro. Top Gun Maverick, written by Aaron Kruger, Eric Warren Singer and Christopher McQuarrie. Story by Peter Craig and Justin Marks. And isn't having that many credited screenwriters a guarantee of quality? And the final nominee is Women Talking, written by Sarah Polley. My personal list of nominees would be Emergency, written by KD Davila. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, written by Ryan Johnson. Living, written by Katsuo Ishiguro. The Whale, written by Samuel D. Hunter. And Women Talking, written by Sarah Polley. I think it's a pretty safe bet that Women Talking, written by Sarah Polley, is going to win this Oscar. Despite the fact it was only this and Best Picture it actually got nominated for. Maybe All Quiet on the Western Front has a chance as well, but I think this is going to be Sarah Polley for Women Talking. And she would also be my personal choice out of the nominees. But, as I've said in many of these videos, it absolutely baffled me and astonished me that The Whale did not get nominated for this category. So if what should have happened did happen, and Samuel D. Hunter got nominated for The Whale, that is who I think should have won. And as I leave you with some honourable mentions in this category, which I think are worthy of note, a reminder that I have several more videos in this playlist which analyse different categories at the 2023 Oscars. You can check those out if you desire, even though if you watch enough of them you will have to skip some pieces of footage that I reused, including this closing statement. I am planning to do a reaction video to the Oscars themselves. I haven't quite figured out the technicals of that, but we'll have to see how that goes. And if you appreciate the kinds of things that I'm doing, I have an audio podcast and I have various other things on this channel that you might want to check out. So you can like, comment, subscribe if you wish. And basically that's all I have for this particular video. So I'll see you next time where I shine a light on cinema, both obvious and obscure.